Now, looking at the summary, we find that the play begins with a war, a fight between the Norwegian and the Scottish king. Now, the Norwegian army, being aided by the Scottish rebels, tried to invade Scotland, and the Scots successfully defend their country and their beloved King Duncan. So, the King of Scotland is Duncan. So, one Scotsman in particular, that is Macbeth, then the theme of glamour, distinguishes himself in fighting off the invaders. After the battle, Macbeth and his friend Banquo came upon a weird sisters, and these are three witches who prophesy that Macbeth will become the Thane of Cawdor and one day king. They further prophesy that Banquo's descendants will be the king of Scotland later on. Now, the men don't believe this at first because they find these are all simple things and they cannot be, somebody can say and it becoming real or something that cannot happen. So, after they reach to the king, they find that the king has named Macbeth as the Queen of Cawdor. It is at that point of time he remembers the witches and the prophecy where they say that the Macbeth will become the Queen of Cawdor and then afterwards he will become the king. So this actually some way initiates a sort of ambition in Macbeth and he starts to plot against Duncan. Now actually, Duncan rewards Macbeth for his bravery in the battlefield for making, and to reward his bravery, he makes him the Thane of Cawdor. Macbeth immediately fantasizes about murdering Duncan and becoming the king, but pushes the thought away because he thinks that's not possible. Later the day, Duncan announces that his elder son Malcolm will be the heir to his throne. Now, as Macbeth begins to succumb in his ambition, Duncan decides to spend a night in celebration at Macbeth's castle of Inverness. So the place where Macbeth lives is the castle of Inverness. So Lady Macbeth now receives a letter from her husband about the prophecy that Macbeth receives from the three weird sisters or the three witches and also about the Duncan's arrival. Now Lady Macbeth starts plotting against Duncan to kill him because this also, the prophecy also initiates some sort of ambition in Lady Macbeth. She decides her husband is too kind to follow his ambition and vows to push him to murder Duncan and take the crown that very night. Now Macbeth at first resists, but later on Lady Macbeth's words questioning his courage and manhood wins him over. That night the murder of Duncan was framed and they put it in the head of men guarding Duncan's room. Next morning, Macbeth, another Scottish Thane, discovers Duncan's death and raises the alarm. Now, Lady Macbeth and Macbeth pretends to be shocked and outraged. Macbeth murders the guardsmen of the Duncan's room so that his mystery could be kept as silent. But he shows up as if he has done this in a furious rage. And Lady Macbeth also faints immediately. So that the suspicion could not land on them. Now Duncan's sons think that maybe they might be the next target since the king is dead and they flee to England. Now many kingsmen think that maybe Duncan's son might have killed him and fled. Actually Macbeth makes it in such a manner that people doubt only Duncan's son and he is made the next king. Now Duncan's son becomes the prime suspect of his father's murder. Because he knows the witch's prophecy, Banquo is very much suspicious on Macbeth. While this is not the real storyline in Ralph Holinshed's chronicle, while Shakespeare presents as if Macbeth and Banquo are not in hand in hand. So here we find that Banquo actually is in suspicion of Macbeth because he thinks that maybe Macbeth might have killed the king. Now Macbeth sees Banquo as a threat to him, and Macbeth gives a feast inviting all the kings while he does not allow Banquo to come up to his feast. He plans a murder to kill Banquo and his son while his son flees and Banquo is dead. While in the feast, Macbeth sees Banquo's ghost, though no one else does. So his behavior is much different, and this creates some sort of suspicion among the things and all. They begin to think that Macbeth is a tyrant. Now, Macbeth refuses to appear at the royal court at all because he also has a doubt in Macbeth, and he goes to England to support Malcolm in his effort to raise an army against Macbeth. Now, Macbeth visits the three witches again to learn more about his fate. They show him the three aspirations who tell Macbeth to beware of nectar, but also that no man born of woman can defeat him, and also that until Burnham would marches to Denizena, a castle where Macbeth will be living, till then Macbeth will be safe. So he thinks that since all men are born of women and since no tree cannot move or march forward to a castle, he thinks that he is much safer. Again, the witches confirm their prophecy that Banquo's line will be one day ruling the Scotland. So to strengthen its hold on the crown, Macbeth sends men to Macbeth's castle to murder Macbeth and his family. Meanwhile, in England, Macbeth and Malcolm prepare to invade Scotland. When the news comes to England of the murder of Macbeth's family, Macbeth, weeping, vows revenge against Macbeth. While the England and Scottish under Malcolm march towards Dunpine, the castle, Lady Macbeth begins sleepwalking and imagining blood in her hand and that cannot be washed off. Now, Macbeth has become manic, cruel, and haunting. Many of his men desert to Malcolm's side. In Burnham mode, Malcolm and his general devise a strategy to hide their numbers. They cut the branches of the Burnham tree and start marching forward. So in this process, Macbeth reveals the news that Lady Macbeth is dead and that is perhaps a suicide. Macbeth can barely feel anything anymore because his partner in the crime is already dead, and her death only makes him give a speech about meaninglessness of life. Then Malcolm's foes appear looking like a forest moving towards the castle. Malcolm's forces quickly capture the castle, but Macbeth himself fights on, mocking all who dare to face him as men born of women can only kill him, while Macbeth reveals that he has untimely ripened his mother's womb, that is a cesarean section. He has not taken up a natural birth, and Macbeth kills Macbeth, and Malcolm is crowned as the King of Scotland. So that's the end of the story. Now there are many famous quotes from Macbeth, and one such as fair is foul and foul is fair, hover though the fog and filthy air. So this comes in Act 1, Scene 1, and this is being said by the Earth Sisters, that is the witches. Now in Act 1, Scene 3, Banquo's code is also famous where he says, and oftentimes to win us to our harm, the instruments of darkness tell us truth. Win us with honest trifles to betray in deepest consequences. Now in Act 1, Scene 4, a quote said by Macbeth, where he says, stars hide your fire, let not light in a dark and deep desire. So this is in connection with where Macbeth is planning to kill the Duncan, the king, and he wants nobody to know about us.